Hi Inge.
Hi.
Today we agreed to talk about the following. So I'm actually going to quote a sentence you apt to me. What is the difference between looking only at the positive or experience allowing yourself to see completeness? So actually, um, so I also am somebody like who tends to like try to see the positive things in things, but also in these spiritual things. Um, and then, for example, sometimes you say something that I think, oh, that's actually kind of scary. Is that really true or whatever? And then, yeah, I, I I have a hard time thinking, hey, is the universe actually that great as it is, or something like that?
Yes. It also depends on what you're trying to do. It and we could go into things like exercises for laws on attraction, etc., etc., for a specific focus. But what I'm trying to let people know, if you focus on the positive, that's one thing. But if it goes as far that you put rose colored glasses on, thereby denying the existence of negative, then in fact, your activity or your energy is contributing to one or two things, either imbalance or you're busy with a deficit. If there's too much negative, then you need more positive to balance the scales. However, when you deny the existence of something or ignore it, you can't address it.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm familiar with this, like especially like in self-help things, like that. If you, for example, have a dark side of you and you try to ignore it, and you're mainly busy like trying to ignore it and not addressing it,
Yes,
this thing. Okay, so actually, so I want to, if can I mention something that you said in one of the earlier videos, like
of
recently?
course, of
Yeah.
course.
So because you said something like we were talking about some really esoterical stuff, and then you said about like then there's some beings who have to decide if they want to if they either stay if they want to change, or they stay stagnant but then will stop existing or something like that. That's something you said.
Yes,
Yeah, and that I found kind of scary. I thought, hey, but like something that exists cannot stop existing or whatever. Like, is that, or is that not true? Like, or does it depend on how you look at it?
look,
Mm-hmm.
when your body dies,
Mm-hmm.
it will stop existing in the form that your body was in when it was carrying life, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the same thing for them. You sort of get, well, how should I say it? Simply said, recycled.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. So, for example,
Yeah, so
re.
if something needs a bit of magnesium, then it gets taken up by that plant. And if another plant needs phosphor, you could end up being absorbed by a tomato plant.
So that could actually be an interesting way of looking at reincarnation. That like it's recycling your soul.
No, true reincarnation, your energetic self, your essence, comes back complete. The problem happens when if you're reincarnated and you forget the past.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the reason I think why people try to look into past lives. Yeah. So
So
that's a bit different.
so actually we're close to something that sometimes scares me, because like I always think like as existence of myself, as something that is in some way eternal. I mean, physically you die, but then you go on or whatever. Huh? And then sometimes you have this image of that, like that you at some point become whole with one again. And so then I think, hey, but then like, will I not disappear then in the whole of one? Or what the hell is happening there? Like if I fuse with all kind of other souls, like, do I still exist?
Maybe
Like,
this will help. There are about 8 billion people on Earth, right?
mhm,
And somebody's looking at a photograph of only Stefan.
mhm,
They see Stefan. Stefan exists as Stefan. So then somebody figures out how to get all 8 billion people in one photograph.
mhm.
You see the photograph in a 10 by 12 picture. I don't think they're going to see Stefan as Stefan.
Mhm.
Stefan might be experienced as a dot
Yeah.
on a piece of paper. Like that.
Okay.
Like that. Not that, but like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I get it. Yeah. I mean,
And the whole, by the way, is bigger than 8 billion
yeah,
dots.
yeah. It's an analogy, of course, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's something that also like puzzles me a bit. Is like, for example, because you're continually changing, huh? So like the me that existed like 10 minutes ago is in some sense gone. It's only the me that exists now. And
That is if you believe that only the here and now exists. If you understand the principles of the past, present, and future all being at once, then no.
okay, but then like I would think, hey, then I'm there in the past and I'm completely stagnant.
No.
Am I overthinking things?
Yes. Something in order to be alive and exist as it is, it must move. There is movement. And that's what I meant when I said change or stop existing. I didn't mean just change, it is evolve. In order for something to register, there's movement. Okay, so then I'll give another hint. This, of course, applies to the levels where form is required. There is such a thing as before form, but that's I've never been able to explain before form because you
Mhm,
need words or pictures to explain everything here. And how can you explain it with nothing? Because there was no form.
mhm.
See, it sounds, oh, I hope people don't think that I'm trying to be confusing. I'm not. It's just I've never even come close to explaining how that part of what we call existence um, can be no form.
Mhm.
There is such a thing. We understand if something is real, then it exists. Then you have to go to what are your personal rules in your mind and understanding for that have to be in place for you to be able to say it exists.
Mhm.
There are people who don't believe in a creator. There are people who don't believe in spirits. Do you see? Because they can't see it, they can't touch it, so therefore for them it doesn't exist. So it depends on what is necessary in the mind of the person who's making a statement for to call something uh, existing, to say that something exists. It depends,
Yeah.
especially if you're talking layers of different frequencies, because most everything is here on earth and people are saying more is here. Well, a bit of what is here now, what's always here, is just people weren't able to experience it or hear it or see it or sense it. Now more people are able to see, hear, and sense, and that is, of course, allowing more to come in. But that doesn't mean that some of it wasn't already here. Just don't experience it. There are two people. One sees um, spirits of deceased people, people who have gone, and the other person standing there is unable to see it.
Mhm.
The only thing that the person who does see and hear can do is to explain um, how they experience it to the person who can't. But the person who can't, it's not tangible. They have to then make a choice. Do I believe or not?
Mhm.
But for themselves, they have no proof. So it is
Yeah.
with existence as well.
Yeah,
There
these are
are,
always
there are
Mhm.
beings who millions, billions years have existed, uh, but other beings have evolved, which makes it necessary for the ones who don't want to evolve, the ones that don't want to change. It makes it necessary for them to change, because those who used to not be able to see 20,000 years ago are now seeing.
So actually, isn't it one of the laws of nature or something like that, that everything always changes?
Yeah, sort of,
Mhm.
sort
So
of.
like, is it like resistance to change, which actually then causes problems?
A lot of problems,
Mhm.
because resistance to change often includes, uh, if we bring it to people behavior, it
Mhm.
causes um, non cooperation with others who are accepting change.
Yeah. So I have a stupid image in my mind now. Like, so I have like Zeus, like the thunder god. So like there was the big god, um, and it was like worshipped by many. But nowadays nobody worships him anymore. So he has to change. Is it something like this?
No. Creator is creator, eternal is eternal. It's that which came after eternal created that has to adjust.
Okay. Mhm.
Because you have a whole, and out of that whole, little pieces come.
Yeah.
But that whole, original whole, stays the same.
Yeah.
But those
Because it is
pieces,
everything. Like yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
there was a lot of freedom. But when we're talking about returning back to the whole, they have to adjust, because some of the pieces from the whole, um, I'll just use straight talk, decided that they want to be equal or greater than the original whole. You cannot be greater or equal to the whole from which you came.
Mhm.
You can't. Maybe someday somebody could prove that it's possible, but that's as far as my knowing will go.
Yeah.
You cannot be greater than the whole that you came from.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that this whole that you said that it's literally the all that is, which means it's literally all that is. So it is containing everything
There are
by definition. Like,
more holes that then are part of the greater whole. We're nowhere near understanding all the holes that are before them.
mhm.
You see, that's why sometimes I'll use word like consciousness, collective consciousness, greater, and then there's a bigger collective consciousness, and then there's greater consciousness. The greater consciousness that I talk about these days is still less the than the entire consciousness of the whole,
Mhm.
because we can't reach it. Better to discuss and address things that can be understood and experienced one step at a time. Because if you can't experience it, then you're back to the two people. One has sight and
Mhm.
one doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, perhaps like it's good to also pull it back a bit in more, and let's not
Yes.
go to big consciousness of consciousnesses.
Yeah.
And like going back to your original sentence, like yeah, the difference between looking at only the positive or experience yourself allowing completeness, huh? Meaning that in completeness you also have things that you would call negative. Is there actually, are there negative things which are completely negative, or is actually every negative just like, for example, a signal for you to change or something like that? Or
That is up absolutely up to the person who experiences. It's up to the, like, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder.
Mhm.
And whether an experience is completely negative, that it brings uh, irreversible damage, that is up to the one who experiences it.
Mhm.
There are people that have been traumatized. Maybe somebody beat them up and they almost died and they had to fight to gain their life, and maybe they were blind in one eye. Some will remain a victim for their entire lifetime, and some will stand up and use it to bring um, violence to the surface, as far as looking at why do we do this?
Mhm.
To stop violence. You see? So
Yeah.
one remains a victim until another lifetime, and that moves into strength and understanding of the completeness of life. That is remains a negative. The other one has already turned it into a positive.
Mhm.
And even there, we should be careful with choosing right or wrong, because the one who stays in the victim role, that person will meet many people, and those people will then have a choice. Do I support this person? Do I comfort this person? If they turn away and say, hey, their problem, that's another negative. If someone says, let me do my best to try this, to help this person to heal and move out of the victim vibration, that's another positive.
Mhm.
I one time told someone, oh, I was like in my early 20s, and they were talking about people in comas. What use? Because there was this discussion about euthanasia, pulling the plug, because obviously, if someone's in a coma, they can't help you with the decision. And they said, well, what use are they to society? And I said, a lot of use. Because every time a nurse, doctor comes to visit and check on that patient, they have a choice. Are they being present with life, love, energy? Or are they present and say, we should just unplug this person and totally. So even a person in coma,
Mhm.
to a certain extent, works, um, is working for the
Mhm.
whole, but it's up to the the beholder or the person who's attending to make the decision. Are we going to do some good with this, or are we going to say uh, pathetic,
Mhm.
useless, etc., and that'll turn it into a negative.
Yeah.
It's a lot simpler said, Stefan, than actually to live according.
Yeah.
this philosophy, but it really is true. And it's something to reach for. You know, when we get down or we get angry, if we can remember this way of thinking, these steps, it can help calm us or encourage us or give us hope.
Mhm.
But it's a lot easier to say it than to live it. Just like even calling yourself a spiritual person, it's a lot easier to say that than to live according to what you know.
Mhm. Actually, so a related thing is also like, so as, as the more I understand of this, actually like this, like if you and experience something what you would call negative in your life, either by something happening to you or by something happening in your body, huh? um, then you can look at it as something like, oh, this is negative and it has to go, or you can look at like, why do I have this? What's the actual cause of this? And what does, for example, my body want to tell me? I'm hurting in my left knee. What does it mean? Like, uh, and then it turns out that it means something, and then you have the choice to address it. Actually,
Yes, that's one way, or that's one happening. Um, it could be as simple as maybe I should spend more time looking at the kind of shoes that I buy, which I'm using that as an
mm-hmm.
anchor point for self care. Okay.
Yeah.
Or it could be, wow, I've been so lucky that I haven't had a problem with my knee for so many years. Or, wow, I
Mm-hmm.
never stopped to think how difficult it was for that person who only had one leg. So there's different ways that this can be turned into a positive.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
So, like, there's many ways in which it wants to tell you something.
yes,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that exactly. Because, sometimes it could just be taking better care of yourself, and sometimes it just is. And it's good to look at why is this? Because it makes you pay attention, but don't get stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Like my mom. My mom didn't drink alcohol. She didn't smoke. She left this earth at 60. She was only 60
Mm-hmm.
with cancer
Yeah.
all through her body. There was a time, and I said, she didn't smoke. She didn't drink. She didn't do drugs. She didn't go to crazy parties. Why?
Mm-hmm.
And that stuck with me for a while. And then I started turning it around. I started saying perhaps she needed only to experience the pain, the physical pain, and the saying goodbye to loved ones, and maybe she was done.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, when something unpleasant happens, we look for a reason that's bad.
Yeah.
Like if a very young child passes, we say why? It had a whole life ahead of it. We could look at it that way, or we could say, wow, maybe that essence was already done and it only had to have a few more years in the body to finish up. And it might not even be finishing up for itself. It could
Mm-hmm.
be finishing by giving the experience of the loss to those that have a choice, be sad or rejoice.
So, actually, with respect to this, yeah, what you said, like looking at only the positive or allowing yourself to see everything. I always look at it like this, and let's see what you think of this. if you don't look at some things that you call negative, then you're actually missing an opportunity to see something as positive.
Yes.
And then if you look at it like that, then there is no real negative thing.
Exactly.
Okay, good. Because that's a little bit my life motto. So I'm happy that you underlined that.
Yes. And that's when that's when you shine, and that's light, and that's life.
Okay.
But Stefan, it's easier said than done. Most
I
people
know.
have a hard time.
I know.
So always acknowledge that we all process information and happening differently.
Yeah, and it's never like how you say, underestimate somebody's suffering by saying, but you can learn so much of it. And what
Yes.
does it want to tell you? Look into
Yes.
it. Like that's not the way to go. These are things people have to figure out themselves in some sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Emotions are a gift, and they have a right to live also.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of life. The only reason why we talk about these things, actually, I believe, is so we don't get stuck in one way of thinking, or one way of feeling, or one way of looking at things. And that's why we have these conversations, so that we remember, oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah, I did become stronger because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow, if that hadn't happened, I would have never tried another job. And I love this new job. You see? So these are just tools to also keep us in balance. But certainly emotions, grief, anger, uh, regret, eh, they should all be acknowledged.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't get stuck in them. That's all.
I think this was a very positive video.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's about it.
Okay, good. Then see you next time.